Lab number 4, we're going to do the first exercise by creating a VM using the ARM template. Now this requires you have the GitHub files from Microsoft Learning GitHub repository, AZ500. You'll need this all file available locally for this Lab 4 to deploy a virtual machine. Alright, so we're going to select template deployment. Template deployment. Select build your own template in the editor. Navigate to the downloaded lab files. Select the template. Save the template. Go to edit parameters. Upload the parameter. Parameters.json. Save it. We're going to store this in a new resource group. Our next exercise will implement Azure Mfa. We're going to activate the Azure AD Premium trial so we can make use of the Mfa, Conditional Access, as well as the Privilege Identity Management and Azure Identity Protection feature. So first we need to activate the Azure AD Premium feature. Alright, so this is already a brand new directory. I'm going to go and select licenses. All products. Now part of activating the Premium P2 is an identity verification. Alright, so once this Premium trial has been activated, later as we start to use things like PIM, Privilege Identity Management, we will need to associate it with a MFA info for ourselves and verify our identity. So you may need to have a cell phone that can receive text message later on to confirm your identity. Alright, now we're going to create 3 users, AAD user 1, AAD user 2, and user 3. Please see lab 1 in creating a user. Now user 1 will be assigned AD role of global admin, user 2 will be standard user, AD user 3 will be also standard user. Now this is to create the first user. Ensure that you write down the password and select roles. This is Active Directory roles, not RBAC roles that manage resources. Okay. So here we are going to select Global Administrator as the directory role. And we'll continue to create AAD user 2 and 3. Now no special assignment will be made for 2 and 3, they will just be standard users. Now as you add this user, you can click on this to copy the username and use Notepad to have a note of it. In auto-generate password, make sure you click show password, copy that into the Notepad as well. You need the username password for these users you're creating now, later to log into to access resources. Now that we have these users, we are going to assign them Azure Active Directory licenses. Now, there is a user property that must be populated before license can be assigned. So I want to ensure that this is highlighted. Okay. The usage location of a user must be populated prior to license that can be assigned to it. So make sure that's taken care of. So click on edit. and we'll assign the location for all three users. Now all three users have the locations assigned. We're going to go to licenses and assign. Alright, so in this task, you'll add assign licenses to the three users you've created and yourself. So we're gonna go ahead and sign out and sign back in. Alright, now the user has been assigned the premium licenses. We are going to Azure Active Directory and configure the Mfa settings. So under Manage, scroll all the way down, you'll find Security. Under the Security element, select Mfa. Now this will take you to configure additional settings. Now you can configure the service settings, whether or not to allow app password to be generated. Now, not all applications that we use are browser-based where it can interactively challenge us for multi-factor. So for older apps, for example, mobile apps that may not be aware of Mfa, they can sign in with an application specific password. Now you can also specify which IP you trust that you would like to skip Mfa for those IPs. Alright, now you can also say I would like to skip multi-factor for federated user on my intranet. The method of which we can verify uses identity, text message, mobile app, or hardware token. Whether or not to allow users to remember the Mfa for X amount of days without being constantly challenged. All right. Now also notice another way we can make it more user friendly is by using conditional access policy. Okay, so perhaps we can define conditions which make it less security critical to, under certain conditions, not challenge Mfa. So this is under service settings. Now we're going to switch over to user. The user section. Now we're going to assign AAD user 1, enable Mfa. Alright, there we go. Now you can also, once the user's enabled Mfa, you may enforce it. Okay. So after the Mfa is enforced, user will need to create app password. Okay. So all sign in through browsers will be enforced with Mfa challenge, or otherwise they will not be able to log in. For non-browser application, you're going to have to use an app password to sign in. All right. Now we have this user enabled for the Mfa. We're going to go to Manage User Settings. All right. So there are three things. You can specify require select users to provide contact information again. So if they have previously provided value, we're going to ask them again, delete all existing application password, perhaps it's been compromised. Restore Mfa on all remembered devices. So challenge them again for Mfa. Right. So we're going to cancel this, not make any changes here. Now we're going to go back to the Mfa. We'll navigate to the fraud alert. Now, users may be sent a text message which offers them the option of replying one if it's a fraudulent sign-in. So you can allow users to provide feedback such as I did not initiate this Mfa. Okay. You can also enable the users to be blocked from sign-in once they have reported uninitiated Mfa challenge. Alright, so here is you can specify the code. So press 0 to report MFA fraud. Now to validate the MFA configuration, you're going to need a cell phone that can receive text. So we're going to start a private browser. We will sign in to the Azure portal. With the AAD user 1 credential. So make sure you have that. So this is now soliciting MFA information. Now we can use a Microsoft Authenticator app, or I can say I want to set up a different method. Alright, so once you're able to verify the SMS, this would have completed the MFA. Alright, so here I'm selecting the method 2 as email. Alright, so that completes the user sign-in experience to use MFA. So future sign-in, user will be challenged by the MFA. So on subsequent sign-in, the Azure will send a code to your phone, and you must provide that code in order to sign in. Now, it depends on whatever second factor you have configured. You also have to acknowledge that this is a MFA challenge. Now we're going to close the incognito. Now next exercise, exercise 3, we will be configuring Azure AD Conditional Access Policy. Conditional Access Policy. So navigate back to the Directory Security section. Conditional Access. We'll be creating conditional access policy that requires MFA when signing into the Azure portal. Now Azure portal is the application we are trying to protect. So we're going to select new policies. Give the policy a name. We're going to target specific user. AAD user 2. Now we could also exclude certain users rather than include. Cloud apps or actions. The app we want trying to protect is the Microsoft Azure Management. And this represents your portal application. Now in the conditions, this is where we apply the conditions to decide whether access should be granted or denied, or things such as MFA should be used to access the resource. Right. So in this conditions, it's possible to say make decisions based on sign-in risks, such as impossible travel or signing from anonymous IP. These all carry certain risk. So you can say if the risk matches the condition. Also, if things like device platforms, right? Location of the sign-in attempt, client application, these all makes up the conditions so that we can decide whether the access should be granted or the access should be blocked. Now, if we were to grant access based on these matched condition and apps and user, we may require multi-factor authentication. We can select multiple options. Okay. Required client apps, okay, to access this. Now further down, for multiple controls, this is where you can specify whether all checkboxes must be satisfied or as long as one of them is met, we will allow access to the app. All right, select that. So we're just going to leave require multi-factor, and as long as one of those is satisfied, we're in good shape. All right. Now make sure the policy is actually enabled to have it take effect. All right, and let's create this policy. Now the policy is created, we're going to open up another incognito window, try to sign in as user 2. Now this user 2 should be challenged by Mfa. Use a different window. AAD user 1 had the Mfa enabled at individual user level, and AAD user 2 have it enabled via conditional access. So, all right, so here we can go through the activity of verifying this credential again. We won't do this again. Okay, so, but it's just like the last time. All right, so we can see the conditional access does challenge user for multi-factor sign-in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make sure this policy is deleted for our next activity. Exercise 4 will be working with Azure AD Identity Protection. Now, this is a intelligent product that protect your Azure AD identities. Okay, so this product defines risk pertaining to user's identity. So when user's identity is at risk, how should we handle this user's interaction? And also, the act of sign in are risky, and how are we planning on responding to these risky sign-in attempts? So this product here will protect the identity within your Azure AD. So some of the user risk policy would be leaked credential, okay, credential that's been stored in paste bin, etc. All right, so when it comes to risky user credentials, we're going to include all users. Now, typically, you want to have a few users who are not subjected to the risk assessment, so they will always be able to sign in without identity protection challenging. All right. So here we specify the user risk. All right. So these user risk defines certain acts or certain facts that can indicate the user's account has been compromised. For example, a user's account shows up in the dark web list, or a user account is leaked through some other agency. And the way we can mitigate that is by either block their access outright, so we can block them from signing in at all, or we can say we do allow you to access, but since your credential has potentially been leaked, we're going to require a password change to make sure that whatever leaked credential will not be used to access this directory and this resource. All right, so enforce policy on, and this will apply user risk policy. Now, in the sign-in risk policy, we're going to do similar things, include all users and exclude ourselves. All right. Again, there are various sign-in risks. Now, because this sign in may be suspicious, perhaps you've connected to a VPN server or you connected to a Tor network, the sign in would be considered a risky activity, or you're signing in from an IP address that's known botnet. So, the way to mitigate this sign in being risky is to either block them outright or allow access but requires MFA to further confirm the identity of the user before we allow the sign in to proceed. Alright, now to test whether this risky Azure Identity Protection is in effect, I'm going to use the Tor network from the browser Brave. So the Brave browser has built-in private window with Tor. Enter the password to attempt to sign in. Now a message that says your sign-in was blocked because MFA is required, but AAD user has not yet provided MFA details, so therefore the sign-in will be blocked. Now we're going to try a different user that has MFA information. Alright, then you can see the suspicious activity detected because we are connected through the Tor network. And we're going to go ahead and verify. So once the verification is underway, and I'm able to sign in to the Microsoft service. Now I'm going to close this window. All right. So back to the portal, I should be able to look at reports to see if it has captured risky sign-in activity. So in the risky sign-in report, you'll notice that there will be an entry. Sometimes it has a few minute delay before it shows up. Make sure clear all these filters to see the entry, and it will say, well, interrupted. What's the reason? Sign-in error code, and the user that triggered this suspicious sign-in. All right. So now let's conclude the lab 4. We need to clean up all the resources. So let's go back to identity protection. Make sure we enforce policy and turn off the sign-in risk policy. Now for this resource, make sure you do not delete this VM. Make sure you stop them until the next lab comes around. So make sure this resource group is retained for the next lab. So do not remove this VM. Okay, just make sure that you stop the VM. Click on the VM, stop it. Now this VM serves the purpose of running the Tor browser if you follow the instruction. Now if you have a locally installed Brave browser, then you certainly don't need to use this for now.